Hello everyone, in this video I'll be breaking down the biggest meta changes in Baldur-Gate 3's Patch 8, which introduces 12 new subclasses into the mix with some fan favorites like the Hexblade and Shadow Magic Sorcerer. So we'll be breaking down what's going to be the biggest changes to the gameplay in Baldur-Gate 3. I still think some of the strongest classes are actually in the base game itself, with things like the Swords Bard and the Draconic Sorcerer, but I'll be breaking all of that down in this video. Previously, the Berserker Barbarian was the strongest throwing build in the game, but the Giant Barbarian is also a throwing build. This is different though. The Berserker probably has a little bit more DPS. However, with the Giant Barbarian, you get some other cool abilities. So you add your rage damage doubled on throw attacks. You also get the Thaumaturgy and you can increase your carry capacity. But with the Giant Barbarian, we actually get some other abilities that are very powerful. So as we continue to level up, we get the ability to add elemental damage to our throwing attacks. We also get the Boot of the Giant. You try to kick a target away and your chances are higher depending on your athletic skills and if you're hidden or invisible. What's nice about this is it gives you some different bonus action. You may be able to knock people off a ledge and take them out entirely. But the big thing here is the Elemental Cleaver. Where this is a bit different is this will actually add the thrown property to weapons. Previously, if you were to throw something like this Great Axe here, it wouldn't actually get the weapons damage on your throw attacks. It would be very, very weak. So this not only adds whatever damage type between acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder, but it also adds the thrown property to the weapon, which is actually very powerful because this lets you throw things that you normally wouldn't be able to throw, like a giant axe like this. You can also throw great swords and much more, whereas with the Throw Zerker, you're really limited to using the Returning Pike or Nyrelna weapons. Nyrelna is still likely the best throwing weapon, but we also get our Mighty Impel at level 10 here. And this has got to be one of the coolest animations in the game. You do a suplex and throw them over your back, but it gives you a throw attack. So this is the full-on crazy thrower build of Baldur's Gate 3. The big thing being, again, you get the Elemental Cleaver here, which lets you go ahead and throw weapons that you pretty much normally would not be able to throw. So this becomes very crazy in a number of situations. So when we go into our rage, we can use our Giant's Rage, which will make us large and in charge. Great for Karlach. And then once we're in our rage form, then we can go ahead by adding the Elemental Cleaver to our weapon attack. Personally, the cold damage works very well, not just because I love cold damage, but there's a special interaction if we have the Snowburst ring. When we deal cold damage, we create ice surfaces. So this becomes quite crazy. Now, what we'll be wanting to do is go ahead with throwing attacks here. So we have the thrown ability on our weapon now, and you can see there down at the bottom, it has the thrown. So then what we can do is we can go ahead with actually throwing this weapon, which is pretty wild. So this will allow it to return to our hands. So we can just go ahead there with the throw, and you'll see there, it'll create an ice patch below the target, and we get our axe back as well. This is great because you can now do some ranged crowd control with this. It's very powerful, as you saw there. We just needed one throw and it took out the Grief Guard Afara there. So yeah, it's actually quite powerful. I'm a big fan of it myself. Unfortunately, with this, you don't get the ability to do a bonus action throw, where the Berserker Barbarian really shines, but we can still go ahead with our thrown attacks, and we got some other bonus action abilities that are also pretty fun to use. But again, I like this because you can throw the big axe, it does a ton of damage, and it'll create those little crowd control pockets for us if we're using the Snowburst ring, making this actually a lot of fun. Yeah, it knocked him prone and perfect. And we do have good bonus action abilities though. We got the Boot of the Giants here, which you can actually get into a good position to do a couple different things with it. So you also got Mighty Impel, so we can pick her up and you can throw her to her death, or you can throw her at another target. So yeah, that's pretty nice when you can just literally pick someone up and suplex them to their death. That's why I think the Giant Barbarian is stronger than people think. I've had some people tell me that the Berserker Barbarian is stronger, but I don't think so. When you can do things like that and then pull up your axe and toss it at someone, and then create ice surfaces below them, which could end up knocking them out and interrupting concentration if they have any concentrations on spells. You still can critically miss, but yeah, it's you can see there, it's very strong. Not due to just the crowd control, but you have very powerful bonus action abilities as well. So it's a blast to play. And then you also, I'll just use the Mighty Impel. It's so cool. The kick is pretty normal. You just do a normal kick attack, but being able to suplex someone is hilarious. Not only is this just I would say the new meta for the Barbarian, it's a ton of fun as well. So personally, I think the Giant Barbarian is going to be great for a lot of people, especially if you want to do something a little bit different from what you normally would run with a Throw Zerker Barbarian. And for that reason, I think it's a pretty big change to the meta, because it's going to be able to allow some different builds, and you don't have to just throw 2 different weapons. You got a lot of options now. Now, I don't think I could go any further without mentioning the Hexblade Warlock, which I think actually becomes the best single level dip in the game. Previously, whenever we were thinking of a single level dip, it would be the War Cleric, because the War Cleric gives you 3 bonus action attacks. The Hexblade is probably the best subclass to choose for a single level dip if you're playing a charisma based class, because you get the ability to do a bind hex weapon, which makes it so that you use charisma for your weapon attack rolls, which is pretty huge. And on top of this, you also can apply the Hexblade's Curse, and you get a Hexblade's Curse once per short rest. And this will allow you to get extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus and give you an increased critical hit chance against the target. This also gives medium armor, shield, and martial weapon proficiency, which is nice. But you also get the shield spell, which is actually underrated here, because if you're just using a single level dip, you can go with the shield, and you got 2 of these per short rest, which is really nice. And then you also get a Wrathful Smite if you really want to use something like that, or the Hex spell, or even the Hellish Rebuke. So these are 2 really nice ones. But the Hexblade's biggest benefit is giving you that charisma-based attack rolls, and also weapon proficiency. So you can really get creative with how you multi-class it. Now, it's not going to be as strong as some of the other classes here, but I think this might be one of the best subclasses for the Warlock itself. Another thing, you also get Booming Blade as a cantrip, which is very powerful and also meta-changing in and itself. This is great for the Hexblade, as well as the Bladesinging Wizard, which we'll be getting to in a moment. Now, level 6, you also get a cool ability with the Accursed Spectre. So whenever you attack and slay a creature that is afflicted with your Hexblade's Curse, you can raise an Accursed Spectre to fight alongside you. It has got 44 health, but it's nice because it can tank some damage for you, making this actually a pretty good subclass overall. Now, personally, I don't love the Warlock. I feel a bit front-loaded, and you don't get level 6 spells, which have some of the best spells in the game. I'm a Sorcerer, big fanboy here, so that's obviously my thoughts, but this is really good. It gives the Warlock an option for going later in the levels, and it's actually very strong. It also gets some nice spells too. Once you get to level 9, you get Cone of Cold, which is one of the best level 5 spells in the game, as well as Banishing Smite. And this is not just the melee, or not just the range version, you also get the melee version. Previously, on an earlier version of Patch 8 didn't say that, but you also get Hold Monster, so all in all, pretty good spell list here. Now, the final ability that you get unique to this is the Armor of Hexes. So whenever you apply the Hexblade's Curse, attacks that come towards you, you have a potential to actually block the attack. It has a 50% chance of working, so it's pretty good. Being able to completely negate an attack using a reaction is very powerful. So this makes it actually kind of defensive of a Warlock, because you get those Accursed Specters that help tank with you, and you also have the Armor of Hexes here. You apply the Hexblade's Curse, and you have an increased chance of taking it out. I do think that this is going to be the new way that people play Warlock moving forward. The Fiend Warlock is fun. I like it a lot in the Great Old One, but there's something just about the Hexblade. I think this ends up being the strongest Warlock subclass in the game. The Bladesinging Wizard. This is an interesting one, combining spellcasting and martial attacking. I actually think this is very strong. Now, when it comes to the subclasses for the Wizard, the Abjuration is probably the strongest, because it can have the Arcane Ward and then literally become unhittable, using Armor of Agathis to deal damage to targets while they try to hit you. Very powerful. Other subclasses being like Evocation and the Necromancy being pretty powerful as well. But I think that the Bladesinging Wizard ends up being the best, because you now have the option to do a few different things. So with this, we get the Blade Song, which gives us +2 to our armor class and increased movement speed. We also get advantage in acrobatics and +2 bonuses Constitution saving throws, which is huge, because if you got Warcaster, that allows you to get advantage on Constitution saving throws with a +2, so you're not going to lose your concentration on spells very often. With this, you also get light armor and performance. You get proficiency with daggers, sickles, short swords, rapiers, scimitars, and long swords. The big thing being, the rapiers are actually one of the stronger ones to go with. And you can also go with the Infernal Rapier to be able to use your spellcasting, which is intelligence, for attack rolls. We also get the shield spell, which is very powerful, especially since we're going to have a increased armor class. We're just going to be able to fully tank hits. But as we continue to level up, there's actually more survivability features that we do get with this. The Wizard, known for their great ability to cast a bunch of different spells. We also get Booming Blade, so, you know, it's going to be very powerful. Another thing, you can use like Misty Step to get in close with this subclass, which is nice. So you got mobility. Another thing, we get Counterspell. Where this becomes cool is we can use the Duelist Prerogative, which is actually, I feel like, the weapon meant for this, because we then get 2 reactions allowing us to do 2 counterspells. That is crazy in and itself, because whenever you got the Duelist Prerogative, you can't wear a shield. The Bladesinging Wizard also can't wear a shield. In addition, extra attack at level 6, so you can go do 2 stabby stabs, or you can cast a spell. The options are limitless with this, because you could literally do like a wall of ice or Oluk's freezing sphere with your main action. You can apply haste. Like, there's just so much going on with this class. It's pretty crazy. Having options is really nice too, because you got not only very powerful spells, the wizard's a strong spellcaster, not as strong as a sorcerer, but still extremely powerful. And then on top of that, you got options for melee. Also, you get Conjure Elemental, which you can use the Water Myrmidon to set up and do double damage with your Cone of Cold. So you got really strong spell casting, but in addition, we also have the Song of Defense. So when we're in our Blade Song, we can actually expend a spell slot to subtract 5 times that damage, 5 times the spell slot's damage. So if we expended a level 4 spell slot, that's minus 20 damage. This makes this a very tanky class, and there's actually some very crazy combinations we can use. So the Duelist Prerogative I mentioned, but also if you're going to apply the Ballast Armor, that's light armor that we can actually use, which makes this a very powerful subclass. So the Ballast Armor makes it so that targets take double piercing damage. And if you're using a Rapier, obviously the Duelist Prerogative is going to be the best one, because we can go into our Blade Song here, and whenever we have the Blade Song, you can't be wearing heavy armor or medium armor. So the Ballast Armor works on this, and then you can apply the Blade Song there, or Blade Singing, and you're going to use this weapon because you get an extra benefit whenever you have your offhand empty. So you get a critical hit chance on 19, and you gain that additional reaction, which means 2 counter spells per turn. In addition to this, you also get really cool attack animation. I'm just going to show this off. I love this kick here. That's just so cool. You can use the Wither and Cut for your bonus action from the Duelist Prerogative, but yeah, this is going to be extremely strong, because having 2 counter spells is very nice for shutting down some of the harder spell casting fights in the game, especially in Act 3. You also get the Blade Song's Climax here, which will do additional force damage and can heal your allies. So that's really nice in and itself too. The Duelist Prerogative also gives you the Dueler's Enthusiasm, so you can get yourself an extra bonus action attack. What's cool though is if you have the Helmet of Fire Acuity, or the Pyro Quickness hat, when you deal fire damage with a level spell, you can drop a fireball, and this will burn yourself and give you an extra reaction for those attacks. So there's many ways in which the Bladesinging Wizard can actually be very strong. I personally think this will be the strongest one for 99% of people. If you want to use an Abjuration Wizard, it will be stronger in certain instances, but it requires a lot of setup, and it's not a fun way to play the game when you can literally go into Blade Song and do your little twisty stabs and cast spells at the same time without much worry. So with this, I think that this is the strongest wizard subclass for, again, 99% of people. Very fun too. I've had a lot of people tell me the Arcane Archer is horrible, and I shouldn't say that it's a good class, but I'll be honest, it's actually a pretty decent class. There are some changes from D&D, and I think that's where a lot of the preconceptions come towards this subclass, because people think it is pretty bad. The Banneret is probably the worst fighter subclass in Dungeons & Dragons, and the Arcane Archer is not that great either, because you only get 2 arrow shots. However, they give you a lot more arrows in this, so you can use your arcane arrows often. And where this becomes crazy is because this here, the piercing arrow, you can line this up and do additional piercing damage on targets, but hit multiple targets with this attack. And this becomes very crazy with 2 different feats that I will talk about in just a second here, because yeah, you also got the Seeking Arrow too, which is basically a magic missile for your arrows, and adding psychic damage is also quite nice. You also get the Bursting Arrow. These are my 3 favorite. The Piercing Shot is probably the best one, and this is cool because piercing arrows are a lot of fun. You do got the ranger's abilities, but the fighter gets 3 attacks. This is where it gets crazy. Now the crossbow expert, so when you make a crossbow attacks within melee range, the attack rolls don't have disadvantage. This is going to be an essential feat. Your piercing shot will also inflict gaping wounds for twice as long, but being able to do point blank crossbow attacks is massive. Also pairing this with sharpshooter, I will show you how crazy this gets. So you have 3 attacks, you can use 3 piercing shots, you can do them at melee range, and you get the sharpshooter bonus applied to them. So sharpshooter will add a +10 to the damage, but -5 to the attack rolls. You can take the archery fighting style to give yourselves an increased armor or increased hit chance. Your ranged attacks are considered magical to overcome resistances, and when you miss any magical range attack, you can use a bonus action to attack the next closest target. So yeah, the Battlemaster may be the better fighter. However, I still think the Arcane Archer is a very good class and has some very niche uses, which I'm talking about or showing off in a second here. The big thing being it gets 3 attacks. You also get a lot of choice for your arrows. Being able to blind a target 2 with an arrow is really nice, but 3 attacks and the ability to use hand crossbows on this at close range makes it pretty beefy, I'll be honest. Typically, you don't want to use hand crossbows close range because you have the disadvantage, but with crossbow expert that changes things. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on normal bows, but if we're using, there's not many hand crossbows in the game, but the Hellfire hand crossbow inflicts burning whenever you hit a target from hiding, and then this will do additional damage whenever you hit a burning target. So you can do a kind of a stealth build. In addition to this, we want to be using the ballast armor here, because this again makes targets vulnerable to piercing damage, so they take double piercing damage. Whenever you have that applied, your +10 from sharpshooter becomes a +20, and you can also use the piercing shot, which is going to do a ton of damage. So you can go boom right through them both. The ballast armor is not applying anything right now. Nothing's really working because these are my teammates, and I also have some mods installed. But the arcane shot, you can see there, it's got the 1d6 plus 13 piercing damage plus 1d6 piercing, and then that's going to be doubled because of the ballast armor, which I guess I'm not actually wearing right now. This becomes crazy because you can get people in close in a line, and it's actually very generous with where it hits. You can see there, like right here, we can hit 3 targets with it just by going with boom. Save failed. Yeah, it's strong. You're not seeing it right now, I'm just using it in camp, but with the ballast armor, crossbow expert, sharpshooter, for all that extra damage, it becomes pretty crazy. So underrated, I would say. People are saying this is the worst subclass, but I think with Larian, they gave it 10 arcane arrows, so you got a lot of them. You can also use the seeking arrows to warp their way around walls to hit targets, so you're never going to be in an instance where you're not going to be likely to be in an instance where you can't hit a target, so that is very powerful in and itself. The Shadow Magic Sorcerer is also a very fun and powerful class because you get the ability to come back up from the Strength of the Grave, you get superior dark vision, and you also get a darkness spell that you can see from and cast from. And darkness in Baldur's Gate 3 is very powerful, so whenever we get to level 3 here, we get some more abilities. So you get the meta magics just make the sorcerer very powerful. Twin spell for twin haste. But at level 3, we get the Eyes of Darkness, which uses 2 sorcery points instead of your spell level slots, which is nice. And you can hide out in your own darkness. So the Eyes of the Darkness is very, very effective. And we also get a dog, which I'll show you. The dog is really nice. What's the dog doing? It's going to help out. It can help you recover your spell slots. You also get Booming Blade here if you really want to do like some weird multi-class. But the Shadow Magic Sorcerer is a spellcaster that can hide out in the shadows, and it actually has a bonus action ability to teleport as well to any spot of darkness, which makes it really strong. But at level 6 here, this is when we get the Hound of Ill Omen, which can summon a creature of darkness with the bonus action and 3 sorcery points. And whenever it attacks with its ominous bite, which is its main attack, it will give an omen to a target. That omen is a damage type you must inflict on the enemy, so it could be acid, it could be fire, it could be lightning. If you cast that spell against the enemy, you get a sorcery point. So you can have this basically keep giving you sorcery points back. It's really nice because hypothetically, if you're able to pull it off, you can literally get all your spell slots back by turning your sorcery points back into spell slots by using cantrips. But it's a bit of luck involved because it is quite random. And the sorcerer again is very powerful in a lot of ways because it's got great spell casting, it's got bonus action spell casting, good spell list, missing the conjure elemental, which would make it pretty powerful. But the big thing with the Shadow Magic Sorcerer is being able to hide out in your own darkness and then cast spells from it while you're not getting hit by the enemies. And at level 11, we get the Shadow Walk, which is basically Misty Step, but for only to shadowy areas. And you also get a free distance spell whenever you Shadow Step. So you can Shadow Step to safety and then get a free long range spell. Distance spell increases the range of spells by 50%. So you can literally cast your spells so much further with that. Normally, if you're using the distance spell, you can see I'll apply a distance spell on a magic missile. This opens it up so that you can literally hit like people that you may not even have thought you'd be able to hit. So yeah, that is crazy. Getting that from a bonus action Misty Step that does not take our spell slots is crazy. So Shadow Walk's actually very generous. This place is dimly lit, so you can literally teleport pretty much anywhere with this and then get that free distance spell. So Shadow Walk, distance spell. But the Hound of Ill Omen being my favorite, you can pop the dog down, and what's cool about the Hound of Ill Omen is it'll splinter off. So if it gets attacked, if it's not radiant damage, it'll create another dog, and then let's say they get cleaved, it'll create 2 more dogs. You can pretty much create infinite dogs. It's crazy. It also has the Umbral Tangle, trap your enemies in shadowy vines, and it's little helper dogs. You don't get to control them, but they will go around using this for you. This subclass, I still think the Draconic Sorcerer is probably a stronger one, but this actually is very powerful. So I think that this is a very, very fun to play subclass, and it just opens things up to make the sorcerer a bit different. And finally, the Oath of the Crown Paladin. This adds your proficiency bonus to attack rolls, but what's cool about this is it's kind of the true tank of Baldur's Gate 3. So you get some nice benefits as you level up that allow you to actually tank, whereas typically the Paladin, it is a tank, yeah, but it doesn't have any way to actually make enemies attack it. and it gets those with this subclass. So once we get to level 3, we get ourselves the Champion's Challenge. So challenge the enemies around you, compelling them to attack only you. Any attacks they may have against other targets have disadvantage. The Fighter Battlemaster does have goading attack, but it doesn't work very well, and it can only apply to one target at a time, and it uses superiority die. This uses our Channel Oath charges, which we can also use for Turn the Tide, which will shout out and heal all enemies or allies. But these are 2 bonus action abilities. So we also get the command spell, which is nice. But the big thing is, at level 9, you get Spirit Guardians, which you can imagine becomes very powerful in a class that can also smite and do a lot of damage. I think that the Oath of the Crown Paladin mixed with the Hexblade is very powerful, because with the Oath of the Crown, you get the Radiant Smite, which you can do crazy Radiating Orb builds with. So Spiritual Weapon's also quite nice to get. It's a bonus action ability to create a summonable weapon. I recommend the Maul, because the Maul can apply a daze on the target, and when a target is dazed, they then get hit with your spells like Command and Hold Person much more likely. You also get the Divine Allegiance. When an ally within 1.5 meters of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to magically substitute your own health for your allies, so you can take the damage for a teammate. As I said, this is the true tank of Baldur's Gate 3. That's why I think it changed the meta, because previously there was no real tank. You could have a higher armor class, but Baldur's Gate 3 works in the way that targets won't attack you if your armor class is higher than, let's say, Gale, who is a wizard. But level 9, as I mentioned, Spirit Guardians. What's crazy about this is Radiating Orb builds become very powerful, because we got Divine Smite, which will apply them. We walk up to a target, we apply Radiating Orbs. And for those that don't know what Radiating Orbs are, it gives it -1 to attack rolls, and they can stack up to 10 times on targets. Whenever you have Radiating Orbs on the targets, -10 to attack rolls means you're less likely to get hit by a lot of things. And most of the gear in the game will apply Radiating Orbs on radiant damage. Improved Divine Smite. A lot of people have a misconception about this. It doesn't add a 1d8 of radiant damage to your Divine Smites. It adds this to all your attacks. So whenever you go around bonking people with your weapon, you're going to have 1, apply Radiating Orb damage or Radiating Orbs from your Spirit Guardians. But then as you move around, your main weapon attack also deals that 1d8 radiant damage extra. I don't know how people don't think. Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to tell me that the radiant damage is only on smites, but you can see right there, it's on your main hand damage. It's from the improved Divine Smite, and your Divine Smites also do get that extra radiant damage too. Don't get me wrong on that. But what's cool is whenever you have the Radiant Orb builds, you can like apply it with both the Spirit Guardians, your main melee weapons, your Divine Smites, and there's a lot of other radiant damage that the Paladin does too. But big thing being the Champion's Challenge and the Turn the Tide. So you can use these to use your Channel Oath to heal your team. The Turn the Tide is really nice. It's 1d6 plus 14 healing. The Champion's Challenge, you only get one of the Channel Oaths per short rest, so you got to use it wisely, but they do hit in a very large area of effect. So you can see here, being able to goad all targets in this big radius is massive, because then they're likely to hit you and you're keeping your teammates alive. So that's how I think it's going to change the meta in Baldur's Gate 3. All of these subclasses are really powerful, and I'll be talking a little bit more about Patch 8 in the future. So if you have any videos that you want to see regarding Patch 8, please let me know in the comments. Also, hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support, guys. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.